Hi, everybody who's on. My name is Valerie Bergman, and I'm a Microsoft technical architect, and I work with Doug and Michelle out of the Minneapolis location. And today I am going to be sharing information with you about Power BI. And my expectation for today's session is that there could be people on who have never used Power BI, and we may have some people who do have some familiarity with Power BI, but I was going to start out with level set. And then I was going to show you guys how we can create a Power BI report from the starting point of getting the data through cleaning the data a little bit, creating some visualizations, and then publishing out the report to a workspace so that I can collaborate with you. So I was going to take you through a quick end-to-end. And the quick end-to-end that I take you through is not going to be exhaustive of all of the features and all of the things that you can do in Power BI. So I also am going to share with you a deck, and the deck has a little lower level details than everything that we're going to cover today, to just kind of get you interested and to point you in the right direction if you want to do some of your own work. I'm also going to give you guys a link to a content for something that's called Dashboard in a Day. So when our MTCs are open and we are having events in our locations, once a month we have a Dashboard in a Day session that is run by different partners. And the Dashboard in a Day session, it gives you the soup to nuts, everything about Power BI. And there's a really great curriculum that was written around that walks you through very prescriptively how to create some more robust dashboards than the one that I'm going to show you today. So I can give you guys a little sneak peek about what you would be creating if you went through the Dashboard in a Day content. I want to get that in your hands in case you have interest in playing more on your own, learning more on your own, or understanding how others in your company can use Power BI. Okay, so maybe we'll start you right out with the references. These references are going to be posted by Vanessa into our little publish site of the chat window. We will also get you this deck, and the deck includes these references, so you don't have to write them all down today. But that Dashboard in a Day content is the first link that I have for you. And then I also gave a Power BI overview. The documents on Microsoft.com are exhaustive to the level the Dashboard in a Day even isn't. So this is a great jumping off point if you want to start with an overview and then dig into some specific details about how Power BI works and examples of how you can use it. So that is what that second link is. So with that, I am going to, before I hop into showing you the cool dashboard that we're going to build today, I wanted to give you a very quick overview of the term Power BI. And why I wanted to do this is Power BI is kind of this umbrella term. There are a lot of products that are underneath this Power BI umbrella. So we have Power BI, and when someone says that they're using Power BI, I want you to understand that there are different technologies that are included in that family so that you understand what I show you today, and so that you also understand how you could use Power BI inside of your organization. So we're going to be spending a lot of time today in the Power BI desktop. So the Power BI desktop is a product that you could install on your local computer, and this is the authoring tool. The authoring tool of Power BI desktop is very powerful. That's where we'll be cruising through. It is a free download. I know that administrators inside of your organization have the ability to decide whether you're going to allow your employees to download Power BI desktop to use or not, but the download itself is free. It will auto update. So if there is a new feature that comes out in Power BI, it will prompt the user to get the new version when they open up Power BI desktop. Again, administrators have some control over what you will allow to happen there, but the desktop tool is the authoring tool. That's free for all. I've even gone through this desktop tool with high school students to show them how they could leverage it when they're creating reports for their teachers or whatever. So just so you know, free tool. And once you get into a cost is if you want to publish. So when you want to publish, I'm going to go over here. When you publish a Power BI report, you can publish it into a couple different places. You can publish it to Power BI, Power BI service. So the Power BI service is the cloud hosted by Microsoft portal where you can publish out reports and dashboards that you have built. There is a fee for using the Power BI service, so there is a licensing model for that. And the licensing model for the Power BI service can be broken down into a per user license. The per user license is called Power BI Pro. There's also a dedicated license for your organization, and that is called Power BI Premium. So you can see we have a lot of Power BI prefixes with a lot of words after it, and that's why I wanted to make sure you understood kind of how these all fit together. So Power BI Pro is a per user license. In order to read from the Power BI service or publish into the Power BI service, you need to be a user who has a Power BI Pro license, unless your organization has gone with Power BI Premium, which is a dedicated environment for your organization. There is not a per user licensing for the Power BI Premium model. Now, in addition to the Power BI desktop and the Power BI service, you might want to author some Power BI reports that you want to put inside of other applications, and you may want to share those outside of the walls of your organization. So there is also something called Power BI Embedded. So Power BI Embedded allows you to author Power BI reports and publish them into another solution. So they'll get wrapped by the other solution so that you can share something that you have built outside of the wall of the organization, or in a way that whoever's looking at the Power BI report, they don't even necessarily know that what they're looking at is Power BI. So that is another part of the Power BI umbrella. And then we also have Power BI Server. So Power BI Server is the next version of SQL Server Reporting Services server that you could host inside of your private cloud or inside of or on premises. So Power BI Server is not feature parity with the Power BI service. So the Power BI service is hosted by Microsoft. The Power BI Server is something that you can install local, but Power BI Server does have the ability to allow you to publish Power BI reports internally and use them internally. So that's kind of the world of Power BI. Today, we are going to take a look at the Power BI desktop. So we're going to look here, and then we are going to take a quick peek into the Power BI service. So I am going to hop us over into this space. So what we're looking at here is we are looking at Microsoft's implementation of our Power BI portal. So this is the Power BI service as Microsoft uses it. And inside of the Power BI service, you have workspaces. Workspaces are areas where you can publish reports out to, and you can secure things at the workspace level. Administrators can also determine who is allowed to publish to which workspace inside of your organization. So what you're seeing here is my personal workspace. So I have other workspaces that I have access to, but here is my personal workspace where I have been publishing out my reports that I have created. So I'm going to take you to this report. So if we go and look at this report is called World Population. And during our time, we are going to be building together this world population. I'm going to show you how quickly I was able to generate this report. And before I go into that, I wanted to show you some of the features that you get with Power BI out of box, which I don't know who's on the call as far as guys have published reports in the past. I personally used to, like 10, 15 years ago, I used to write SQL Server Reporting Services reports. I've also authored Crystal reports. And after spending a good part of a year focusing on only report writing, I decided that I would tell everyone I didn't know how to write reports, because there was a lot of time that I would spend on just the visual aspect, making my reports line up correctly, making everything look professional. And if I would have wanted to build a report like this one that I'm going to show you here right now, it would have taken me a long time. I'm guessing like we're talking 4 to 6 months at least for me to author something like this if I had been doing it myself prior. So the Power BI reports are made up of these visual tiles, and you have the ability to pick how many tiles you want to show on your report. You can size them just by dragging. I will show you that in a minute. But so this report here that we're looking at is not only nice looking, but it's interactive and the tiles all work together. So if you notice over here, I am showing population by country, and China has the largest population of any country in the world. Over here in the side, I am seeing a map. And if I hover over any of the map dots, it will show me the country that I'm looking at, the population, and what rank they are. Now, if I click on one of these over here, you'll notice that this tile on the left-hand side highlighted what I was clicking on. And down here, this also highlighted what I was clicking. China isn't in this list. So if I come down here and I click on to view, if I don't know if I pronounced that properly, actually, you can see over here where it is in the map. There is this navigational interaction between the tiles that just comes out of box. So I didn't have to do anything special to set this up. This is just how it works. So this would have been very difficult to replicate prior to me using Power BI. The other thing that you can do inside of this report dash that comes out of box is you have the ability to, let's see, I'm going to come over to this one. So for this one, I would like to look at the data. So show me the data that's behind this graph. So I just clicked on a link and I got to this view on the bottom here that shows me all of the data that's fed into this report. So an example of why this is powerful is I have published reports before, executive dashboards, and almost immediately the first thing that will come up is an executive will look at the graphic and they'll be like, I don't understand where that number came from. Show me where that came from. Which in the past I would have had to go back and I would have had to gather the data. So here, there's the ability for users of the report to drill in to see the detail that's driving the report. There's also the ability, and I don't use dates in here, there's also the ability when you're using different types of data to drill into different levels. So for example, I could show revenue numbers. If this were a sales dashboard, I could show revenue number by year, totals by year. And then I could do a drill down if I wanted to see it by quarter, if I wanted to see it by month, or if I wanted to see it by day, which would give the person who's using this dashboard the ability to drill in to figure out what's going on with my numbers. Why does that number look different than I would have expected? So another thing that we have here in this report is we have this Q&A. Q&A is a natural language understanding control that you can drop into the reports to allow people who are using your reports to try to interact with the data to get that, hey, tell me what's going on here, next level question. So I had asked the question, what are the 10 smallest countries? So up here in this graphic, I showed you the 10 countries that have the largest population. This map shows all of the countries, but it's pretty hard, even though the bubbles are sized differently. If there's a larger population, I can't tell by looking at this map over here what the smallest one is, so tell me that. So I asked, what are the 10 smallest countries, and got back this list, Vatican City. Let's see, I am going to say, which country has a rank of 100 for one? Let's see, we'll give that, there we go. So Sierra Leone is the 100th biggest populated or most populous country in the world. And I can click on that Sierra Leone, say, where's that again? There it is. And there's the population. So the point is that the Power BI reports give this very rich experience to your user base without you as a report publisher having to go through and hand code all of this. So I created this report without writing any code. So now I'm going to hop in and show you how I did that. So we are going to start from scratch because what can go wrong on a live webinar? when I do that. So here we go. I opened up Power BI Desktop. And when I opened up Power BI Desktop, it's giving me a little helper here. Do I want to start with data? Do I want to just blank, do I want to open something I've opened in the past? So let's start with data. So I'm going to go get some data. Oh, and I'm going to show you where we're going to get our data from. So we are going to get our data from here. So Wikipedia published out a list of countries and their population. So I want this to be my data source. The reason why I'm picking this data source is twofold. We have a little bit of cleansing that we can do on this data after we pull it in. And I also wanted to show you how easy it is to go and grab data that might not live within the walls of your organization. So here we go. We're going to grab this list for our get data. So when I say get data, I am presented with a bunch of options for how I can go and get data. These are called connectors. There's a connector library that has over 80 different connectors that have been predefined and built into our product set. The connector list is always growing, so we're always adding additional connectors. The connectors include the ability to connect to cloud-based resources as well as on-premises resources, as well as resources that you may in the past have not considered to be an option, like a website or maybe a PDF. So when we say that we want to grab data, in this case, I'm going to take us out to a web location and I'm going to get data from there. When I say connect, I have a few options. So I am just going to put in this Wikipedia page, but if I wanted to, I could append some variables to my query string. So if I needed to pass in parameters, I have the ability to do that. I don't need to do that here. So I'm going to say, okay. What's happening behind the scenes is we are going into that, so actually Power BI is going to that web page and it's crawling through the web page and it is looking for content that it feels might be data that I would want to use in my report. One little step that you didn't see because I've connected to this data source before, whenever you connect to a new web data source, I have the ability to say whether I want to connect anonymously or if I want to pass some credentials in. So if you're trying to connect to a data source that is secure and requires login, you can pass in login information as well. So you have the ability to control access rights as well. So here we go. On this page in Wikipedia, Power BI has crawled through and has found 3 potential data sets that we could use. So there's this one. This is just the document information that was discovered in the HTML. That's not what I want. So over here, I'm getting a preview of the data that Power BI has found. So I can look through and verify whether that is what I'm looking for. So this one is looking good. Let's look at this table 1. Is there anything I want there? No. Okay, so then I would like to use this set of information. I can load it up right away into my Power BI report, or I can pick to transform it on its way in. One nice thing about the Power BI experience here is I can't goof things up. So if I decide to load it, but I really wanted to transform it, that's okay, because after the data loads, I have the ability to go back and continue my transformations. So I can't back myself into a corner. I'm also going to show you how, as we are transforming data, I'm not able to goof things up either. So now our data has loaded in, which our palette here doesn't look much different than it did a second ago, although you may have noticed that some fields have shown up over here on the right-hand side. So we have this sovereign states table that was discovered on that page, and these are the fields that were discovered in that data source. So Power BI just quickly pulled that all in for us. When I'm over here on my left-hand side, this icon here is showing us that we are currently in preview of our report palette. So that's this whole space here. If I click down one, I can look at the data that we have that's behind our report. So this is what was just pulled in for us. And then this bottom one gives me the ability to model data. So if I wanted to join other data sources in order to get more information about the countries that we are referencing here, I could do that and I could relate those tables together. Power BI will help me with the relationships. We'll try to figure them out for me. But if Power BI doesn't, I have the ability to drag and drop field matching in order to do the modeling. So I'm going to go back here in my data, and what we want to do here is we would like to do some transformations on our data. And I'm going to show you why. So as I was inspecting the data, I noticed some things that could use some cleaning up. First of all, I see that we have the rank, the country, and the population is part of my data set, and I would like that to just be a header. There we go. I took that out of my data set. Another thing that I noticed as I scroll down here is I have some dependent territories that are showing up in here that don't have a ranking because their numbers are already included inside of the country that they're dependent upon. So I would like to get those fields out of here. So what I want to do now is, and as I can see too, because of these dashes, I have my rank column is set up as a string. And I would like my ranks to be set up as numeric values so that I can do things like put them in bar graphs and order by them. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change these to whole numbers. When I do that and I scroll down, I will notice that I have some errors in here because a dash does not translate nicely into a number. So I am going to do cleaning here. And what I want to do is I want to get rid of those rows that have errors. So now when I remove the errors and go down, we're looking a lot better. Oh, except for I see one issue still. Down at the bottom, I have a country that's called world, and it has the world population. I can sum together all of the populations in my report if I like, but world isn't a location. So I'm going to remove one more row. I'm going to remove my bottom row. So I'm going to remove my one bottom row, say OK, and now all of my number fields for rank look like they are good. So the reason I wanted to show you this is as I'm going through here, I am, without writing any code or any SQL, I am able to go through and cleanse my data. So if I'm someone who's familiar with Excel, I have the ability to go and self-serve. Over here on the right-hand side, we have applied steps. This shows everything I've done. So this is where I said I can't accidentally mess up my data. If I want to put the errors back in, I could just X this out and it would add those fields back in. So here's my data. Let's see. Another thing that I wanted to do is we're good on country. Our population here looks good. It's a number. We have percent of world population. And then we have this date. And the date is showing up as ABC. And I don't want the date to show up as ABC. I would like the date to show as, so I'm going to create here a new column. So again, I'm just trying to show you how easy it is to add and update your data. So I'm going to say as of date. And in here, I want to create this transform, this April, I just want to transform this date format into a date format that is recognized as a date. So I'm going to do that. And when I tab down to the next field, Power BI has crawled through the date column and has tried to determine what my dates should be. So it's made a guess for me on how I wanted this translation to work. And as I scroll down here, we are looking good. So I'm going to say, OK. So there we go. No code, but I was able to translate this. I don't want this anymore, so I'm going to get rid of the date field. OK. So that was just a quick showing of how we have the ability to do transforms. So I'm going to close this up. And this pulls here. Let's see. It's applying my changes to my data. And there we go. Now, one thing that it did here is it now changed my population. It took away the formatting. So I'm going to put some formatting in here. In my percent of world population, I want that to show up as a percent again. There we go. So I've now gone through and showed you how we can do some cleansing of our data very quickly. So we've connected to our data source, we've cleansed our data, and now I want to start getting to the good stuff and build tools. So I'm going to click here into my, and I'm just going to start picking fields that I would like to include. So I want to know for each country what its population is. So I just clicked on for each country, population, show me what you got. And Power BI inspected the data types of the fields that I selected when I was clicking the box and has proposed to me that I might want to use a map visual. If I didn't want to use a map visual, I could switch to other visualization over here just with the click of a button. But I like that map visual. So we have this map visual, but the thing with map visual is there's a whole bunch of dots. And I don't need to see Antarctica. So there's a whole bunch of dots showing up in this visual, but it's difficult for me to navigate because I think there are 195 countries in this data set. So if I want to get to one of these European countries, it's going to be tough for me to hop in there. Most want to see is what's most important to me is I really want to understand which countries are biggest. And so I want to see the country by size. So I'm going to create another visual. I love this visual. I love the ability to click around the map, but I'd like another visual that ties to this information as well. So I'm going to say country population again. It gave me the map, but this time I want to switch it to a bar graph. So now here I have the countries by population. So this is kind of a big long graph as well. And I think what would be most insightful for my users is if we could just see the top. So I'm going to click on here and I'm going to filter down this visual. So I would like to filter down this visual. I want to see the top 10 countries, but I want to see them by population. So I'm just drag down over this population here and apply it. And now we can see the top 10. In a very short period of time here, we have a map and we have my bar graph. Well, maybe I'll make my map a little bigger. There we go. Maybe a little taller even. So it's easier for my users to get around and maybe click on one of those dots. So the other thing that I'd like to do is I would also like to let my users interact with my data. So I'm going to put in here this Q&A control. So this Q&A control that's all I need to do. So if we want to test it out, I had said, what are the 10 least populated now when I wrote this out, typo, which I had a bunch of typos. Let's see. You can see that we are getting feedback that says, hey, we're not sure. So we're going to give you some examples of what you might want to say. So we might need to say this different. What are the 10 countries? Again, live typing. Wrong. There you go. Okay. So Power BI here is trying to help me out, which it's showing me population of the smallest population. I'm going to try this a different angle. We have rank on here. Or the, Here we go. So when we click on one of these, it's going to show us that this one is India, although this isn't working quite well. But my point is that without doing a lot of work, I was able to drop in this Q&A and we can allow our users to interact with the data and get to some of their own insights. So I wanted to show one more thing before we hop into the publish. So I liked this map, but I also was thinking if we're trying to show country by country, maybe I could get another map view to go along with this. I wanted to kind of highlight some of the other visuals that we had here. So I'm going to click again in my blank space, country, population. Power BI is like, oh, I see you picked a geography, so let me start you out with. But I am going to try using this Argus map for Power BI. So that's going to load up, and this is going to give me a different visual of our countries. So now here, all of the borders for the countries, and when I hover over one of those, it's going to show me the population for that country. So it gives me a different way that I can navigate. But still, as I click on China over here, it's still tied together with the visuals that I already had. Now there are, we have like 20-ish visuals that are showing up here. I also have the ability to click on here and get more visuals. So when I say get more visuals, there's a whole library of visuals that are available for me to select from to leverage with Power BI. So AppSource is going to pull up ones that are out of box free for me to add, and you can create your own visuals inside of your organization that you would like to add as well. So you guys have control over that library. All right, so within a very short period of time, we were able to go get data, we were able to clean our data, and we were able to create these four visualizations. This one on the bottom is leveraging language understanding and artificial intelligence models to help us interact with our data. And I have not written any code yet. So I've done all of this just by clicking and leveraging an interface that's similar to Excel for my data cleansing. And here I go. So now I'd like to take this report and publish it out so others inside of my organization can see it. So come up under File, and I can publish. And when I click Publish, I'm going to publish to Power BI. I'll save first. So let's call this Live Demo. Okay, so I have a pop-up now that's asking me where I would like to publish my Power BI. So earlier I showed you in the Power BI service that we have the workspaces that you're allowed to publish to. Each workspace is its own security group. So I am going to choose my workspace, but as you see, I have some ability inside of Microsoft to pick some other workspace, and I have control over where they will let me publish out my Power BI report. I'm going to publish to my workspace. And we do have the ability in Power BI to create dashboards and reports that are intended to be viewed on mobile apps. And Power BI will help us with that and will tailor the experience for a mobile phone. You have the ability when you create a report to have dual version. So if someone is coming in on a web page, they'll see the web page version versus having a different link for the mobile version without having to go through and manually create two separate reports. So got it, it says it has published for me. So now I'm going to pop back over here into my workspaces, into my reports, and let's see, let's refresh that. So I now have this live demo report that I just created with you. So when I live demo, you will see that everything that I just did has published out here. The Argus map is taking a second to load up, but it's pretty quick considering we have a lot of things going on behind the scenes in the user interface, and there we go. And I could now do things like invite other people to come in and to see my report. I can, when I'm inviting someone to see the report too, I can let them just see it themselves. I can allow them to reshare it with other people, assuming that the other people they share it with have access into my workspace. I can allow people to extend my report by starting with the data that I pulled and appending some of their own data, but I can also prevent that. So I have a lot of control over here. I also could take this report and create a dashboard out of it. So the difference between a report and a dashboard is a report are all these tiles. A dashboard is a container that can hold different tiles as well as different reports. And you have the ability at the dashboard level to get alerts and receive notifications. So that's kind of the difference between the two. I at first was a little confused because this to me seems like conceptually a dashboard, what we're looking at right now, but this is considered a report. And a report consists of the definition of the visuals that go along with the report, as well as behind the scenes, the data set that is used by the report. So when you publish things to the Power BI service and you publish a report out, you actually are publishing both a report and a data set that you can choose to use again. So that is a very quick cruise through creating a Power BI report from getting the data all the way through the publishing. Are there any questions before I move into, I'm going to hop back over and give you a little bit more of an in-depth view about what else you could do. We did a quick report here just so I could show how quickly you could get from start to finish, but there are a lot of options along the way. I'm going to go through just a couple of those with you before I go to official Q&A. But if you have any questions about what I've done so far, let me know.
We have one question. Can you allow and restrict access to certain people from your workspace?
If your administrator has allowed you to invite someone else into your workspace, you would have the ability to do that. As far as restricting people out of your workspace, they wouldn't be in unless you invited them in. So yes, you have security controls around how you can do that. Your administrators are the ones who are going to decide for each individual in your organization what they are allowed to do with different workspaces.
Thank you. We have one more. Can you comment on non-static data sets like SQL data, SQL data?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I'll hop into here quick. So when we talk about getting data, I talked about the connectors, and you have the ability to shape, transform, clean. You also have the ability when you get the data, specify for the connector, the connection that you made, whether you want the connection to be a download of the data into the Power BI data set, or if you want it to be a connection to the data source. So you do have the ability to control that. And that's something that's really good to think about as you're architecting your reports. If you're allowing the report live connection into the data source, the benefit is you're going to see current data all of the time. Whenever the report opens, the most current data is going to be retrieved. The drawback to that approach could be the load on your data source. So if your SQL Server database is a transactional database, you might want to really pause before allowing a reporting solution to grab onto the transactional data source that's required for transaction processing. You don't want to slow down the performance of applications that rely on that data source. However, if that SQL data source is a reporting database, you probably don't have those same concerns. But the other concern that you might have if you do the live connection is you want to evaluate the performance of the load of the Power BI report, because what I was just showing here, you saw there was a second where Power BI was going out, querying the data and pulling it back, and then the transforms that we apply get applied to the data as it gets pulled back. So you just have to be careful with your architecture, where if you're grabbing a large data set, you might not want to do a live connection, because the live connection might require a slower report load for your users. So you just have to balance. Do they really need to see up to the second data and they're willing to wait? Cool. If they want to get a quick, responsive report load, you can also schedule your data set to refresh behind the scenes on a regular basis. So you could preload the data at a scheduled time interval so that you have nearly up-to-date information without having that performance hit up front when the report loads. So
thanks, Valerie. I think that was all the questions for now.
Okay. You also have the ability to create custom data sources within your organization. So if you have a data source that you want to allow your business users to connect to, and they might not know how to connect directly to an API, and you want to do some of that work up front for them, maybe you want to take care of the security up front for them and limit the amount of data that your business users would be able to access. As an organization, you have the ability to create your own custom connectors that you then publish in the connector library for your organization. So if Microsoft doesn't have a connector out of box that you're looking for, we have generic connectors like API connectors, OData connectors, and ODBC connectors that you as an IT group can take that connector and you can add wrappers around it and then publish it out to the connector library that you show to your business users. And I also showed you how we could do point and click for all of the transforms that we did. You also have the ability to use Power Query. So you don't have to go with no code. If you have analysts who are very comfortable using Power Query, they can leverage their skill set in order to do transforms through a dialogue area where they don't have to mess around with the whiz if that's not how they want to work with the data. Those are kind of some tips on getting data. The other thing is we didn't touch on this a lot. I mentioned it, but Power BI has the ability to get data from both public cloud as well as from on-premises data sources. So if you have parts of your data estate is still sitting in your private cloud, you can create Power BI reports that would join that private cloud data with maybe some Office 365 data. You have the ability to do both of those. And so we have gateway services that would get installed on your local servers if you wanted to expose data to Power BI. From the analysis side, I didn't walk you through any heavy analysis, but you have the ability to create models. I talked about it very quickly. You can there's this visual tool that you can use, and you see the lines here that are showing the relationships between different columns. So Power BI gives you a place where you can do that as well. And in addition, inside of the modeling tools, we leverage DAX, is the behind the scenes language. So where you can do a lot of things point and click, and you can do a lot of drag and drop, and you can use wizards. You also have the ability inside of Power BI modeling tools to leverage DAX and the formulas that are available in DAX. The dashboard that we saw was pretty simple. The dashboard in a day link that I gave you would take you to more of an executive level dashboard that relies on sales data. So it's going to show you more what if analysis, what if our sales went up 20%, and it has a whole bunch of different active. So play around more if you're interested, because that dashboard in a day curriculum will take you to the details of how you leverage all of the time hierarchies so that you can get to by quarter and by month and by day, how you can do things like put slicers on your dashboards, how you can leverage the language understanding in a way that we hadn't. So there's a ton that you can do with the visualization. We did a simple thing, but I just wanted to let you know that if you wanted to build a more robust dashboard, you still can do it quickly. The curriculum contents that I gave you would have you build a report that looks like this. And you see there's a whole bunch of numbers and slicers. I can move through time. I can look at how the revenue has shifted over a year. I can filter things at the top of this report. And this dashboard is what you would build if you're doing the dashboard in a day. You also can, I did not mention bookmarks and custom navigation, but that's another thing that's a way that you can have people interact with your dashboards. That's much more robust than if you were giving them a flat page. You have the ability inside of your reports to bookmark specific things, and you can also walk people through numerous reports that tie together so that you can tell a story with your data. And then when we published, I talked about publishing to the workspace. You could publish to on-premises if you were using the Power BI report server. And for the data refresh, I talked about different ways that we could do the data refresh. You can do a live connection like we talked about before, or you could also do an automatic data refresh. So you could program your report to go out and grab new data whenever the report loads, or you can schedule behind the scenes a refresh of the data. So it is pre-compiled, pre-grabbed, pre-loaded, so that when you open up the dashboard, you get a really performant dashboard load. And then packaging your reports into apps for easy consumption and control. That was the Power BI embedded. So when you create a report, you can publish it in a way that it can then be wrapped inside of an application, including Teams. I know that you guys were talking about Teams earlier. You have the ability to point to a Power BI Teams. You don't even have to do any custom mapping there. That's just a pointer that Teams has great integration with Power BI, as does SharePoint and other Office 365 tools. And all of this though, so again, back in the day when people were using just Excel to do the reporting, which I still have many customers who are still doing that, who are still using Excel for a lot of their reporting. The problem with Excel is as you're passing around a file, there's no insight and ability for people to know what state is the data in, what was the life cycle of that report, that Excel report, who's using it, how often is it being accessed. So when we are talking about pushing things into Power BI has this administrative and governance wrapper around all of the services that are published so that your administrators can get insights into which data is being connected, how often are reports being used. That's one thing that has been a trick that maybe hasn't tracked as well. So because if a report's not being used, why don't we unload technical debt and retire it? So there's all of the analytics and insights that you would expect with the web service you are able to get with Power BI. So the governance piece, I think, is cannot be overstated how cool that is, because data, as you get more and more data coming into your organization, there's also more and more risk of telling the wrong story by accident. So Power BI helps manage that data estate in a way where you trust that the information that you're sending out to your end users is legitimate, and you have a governance team who can oversee it and ensure that you're leveraging the tools properly. I didn't talk about how you can, as you push out reports and desktop or dashboards, you also have the ability to collaborate and talk with one another around those published assets, similarly as you might if you were publishing a document into SharePoint. So in addition to the report and the interactivity with the report, there's also the ability to chat and to discuss around what's going on in this report. Why is our number so high right now? Or why is our number so low if it's a revenue number? So that, in a nutshell, is Power BI. And I think that I am just about at time, or maybe I'm at time. So I'll stop if there's any more questions. There's a lot more in this deck. There's a lot more detail about the connectors, and there's more detail about your connection options, live versus pulling down a copy. So feel free to cruise through this PowerPoint afterwards if you want to go a little deeper than we were able to go today.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. Do we have any final questions, Vanessa?
Yes, just one last question. Can a dashboard refresh its data based on a timer?
So I know that you can schedule a data set refresh, but the dashboard, I think that you just do that in the back end data set. So I would have to look into that. I have not tried doing that. I haven't.
If you're talking the report, yeah, right. You can schedule those all day long. But dashboards are just reflective of reports. So I guess double check, but I would assume it would be off the report. Yeah,
and I would say that I'm not sure. So if you did it off the dashboard, the benefit is you could have the dashboard basically kick off all of the reports, is what I think that would buy you. I'm unsure. I know that you can get to a result where you have the dashboard being refreshed on a scheduled basis because you have the ability to schedule refresh of the data sets and the reports for sure. I can look into that though and get to you.
I think that's it for questions.
There we go.
Okay.
Well, then I'm going to, Val, Vanessa, if you want to live up video so we can get your video on stage as well. So I think, yeah, you can stop sharing, and we're queuing Vanessa up instead of Valerie. Valerie, thank you. You're welcome to hang around for Q&A audio-wise if you want. Otherwise, I think you can drop, and we're kind of at a wrap-up, right?
Yeah. So we'll just take, this is last opportunity for any questions. We did have one that we didn't address, and Doug, I think this is a question for you. Okay. So has Microsoft heard any complaints around performance when people are using those background effects? So this person has seen it impacting their company's conferences.
I have not, but it's like any other visual effect. It's going to depend on the horsepower, the compute, it's not going to impact the performance of the conference because the conference has no clue. It's happening at the PC level where it assembles that visual and then the visual gets sent. Normally, it actually, improves performance of the video stream because there's less changing of data behind you. The worst thing you can do is have like a ceiling fan spinning in the background because it has to send all that motion detail forward. So normally, and this isn't always true, if you have an animated visual effect, those are bad. But a normal visual effect would not impact a conference over much because you're actually, the computer's figuring out the horizon around your head and then sending less changes per frame. So normally it actually wouldn't. It could impact the computer if it doesn't have a lot of horsepower, or if the person is heavily multitasking. That's definitely possible, but it shouldn't overly impact it. So I have not heard that. I can tell you if you're interested in where the problem lies, and you can go check out the archive on our YouTube channel. If you go to Office Flash Friday, we did the call quality dashboard about 3 weeks ago. And you can go look in Teams, you actually see the call quality for every meeting and see exactly what's causing bad call quality. So I was about to say, I don't think so, but you don't have to guess. I hate guessing anyway. Go look at the call quality dashboard. I'm sure the success people can help you out. Diving into that data as well. So then you can find out like which conferences were bad, what devices were people using, were they shouting into their speaker on their laptop, were they using a headset? Like a lot of things contribute, but you would then know if it is believed to be network related or something else. So don't guess. Go get some data.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, as you can see on the slide here, I'll make an announcement and post the feedback link here as well. We'd love your feedback on the event. Thanks for your patience while we experience some technical difficulties.
Yes, thank you.
Just wanted to make a note that a post-event email will be going out. It'll have the recording of this event. It'll have information on your gift card. So if you missed the beginning of the event, we announced that we're giving all participants a $25 gift card to a local Minneapolis restaurant. And then lastly, that email will also have the resources that were mentioned in this presentation.
Awesome. Well, otherwise, we're like 5 minutes up. If there are no final Q&A, I think we can probably call it an end. Not bad considering everyone was working from home and we came together on top of it. It's no River Center event like you guys normally do, but at least we got something done. Hopefully you found some new stuff you can do in there and got some questions answered. If there are follow-on things, obviously success. Do we have any final Q&A?
I don't see any more questions coming through, but as always, Success is here to help. So let us know either through that feedback form or just through an email.
Awesome. Well, then we're going to call a halt to this event 4 minutes early. So we very much appreciate you guys tuning in and spending some time with us today. Thanks to you guys for Success, for Lenovo, for the Microsoft people who helped out, and we'll call a halt to it here. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.